Welcome to the Fishbowl Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me today is Jalen. We are doing our Louisiana versus Arkansas State preview for this edition of the Fishbowl Radio. Also, amongst other things, before I get to Jalen, congratulations to Louisiana Raging Cajuns water skiing team. They have won the national championship for the 10th time in their career, and this is not, they haven't won it just once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times in a row they have won the national championship, and that is a dynasty without, any stretch of imagination. That is what a dynasty is, and that's what the Raging Cajun water skiing team is. So without further ado, let me introduce everybody to Jalen. How you doing today, Jalen?
I'm doing well, Chief. The Cajuns had a great victory on Saturday, and I'm glad you brought it up. Shout out to the water ski team. I had the pleasure of doing a story on them in fall of last year, and it's great that they won another national championship. Congrats to them.
I think you were the first guy to actually interview them guys. I'm not gonna lie to you, and then everybody else kind of followed the train. But here at the Fishbowl, we're often imitated but never duplicated, is what we say. But without further ado, let's get down to Arkansas State here. So they just picked up a big win against South Alabama. This is the first time this year they've actually played like a full, 4 quarters of a game that they played this year. They were in all facets of the game. They played very well, offense, defense, special teams. They did very well. They were able to control the line of scrimmage against South Alabama. The defensive line was at the point of attack for the Cajuns. You're able to stifle South Alabama's offense for the majority of the game there. They really seemed like they were able to put South Alabama in a lot of compromising positions. South Alabama had a bad game, just turning the ball over multiple times here. Really got them out of sync, and that big momentum swing here. 2 interceptions by Lewis Jr. did a very good job in that game. And just a bunch of fumbles. Like they couldn't hold on to the ball. It was like a greased pig that day for South Alabama across the board. And Cajuns won turnover battle, and that's usually when you win the turnover battle, you will win the majority of your games. So Jalen, what you thought about the game against South Alabama for the Cajuns?
I'm just proud of the Cajuns. Like you said, all around, they did what they're supposed to do. Offensively, they put up points. Defensively, you got to give a shout out to the Cajuns defense. To have 0 points for South Al at halftime. I mean, yeah, they gave up 20 in the second half when that last touchdown for South Al came, but like a few seconds in the fourth quarter when the game was already at hand. They already won. But that's kudos to the Cajuns defense. No points in the first half. Proud of that. They put up 17, had a 17-0 lead at halftime. It's just like I said, it's an all-around great game. And I called it cheap. I gotta say, Neil Johnson probably only had 2 catches, but he had the not the first, but the second touchdown of the game against South Al when he was open. Chris saw him, he threw him the ball. That ought to feel good for the Cajuns and also Neil Johnson. So I'm proud of the team all the way. Coach Dez had a great game plan. It's just a great win, and the momentum has shifted the Cajuns' way, Chief. And now we got to see, can they keep it going against Arkansas State on Saturday?
Look, I think what really spun the game open for the Cajuns was that Jacob Bernard touchdown catch from Zion Chris. That was a 33-yard pass, over the shoulder catch, a beautiful place ball. Zion Chris couldn't do that ball any better if he was standing right next to him. And that capped off a 12-play, 93-yard drive, which took 6 minutes and 44 seconds off the clock there. And then, like you mentioned, Neil Johnson getting involved in the game plan. The Cajuns were up 17-0 by halftime, and that is a sombering feeling if you're South Alabama or an opposing team, because you look up at the scoreboard and you're like, oh, we're down by 3 possessions here. It's going to be a tough uphill climb for us. And then they got back out on the field. South Alabama did a 6-yard pass to Carter Bradley, and that from Carter Bradley to Jamal Pritchett. They got on the board there 17-7. Then Kenneth Almaderis kept the pressure up 20-7. Then South Alabama got close. It was a 20-14 game with 6:09 left to go in the third after the South Alabama touchdown. And, you just felt, you're like, okay, kind of South Alabama's got some momentum. It could flip back to South Alabama, but the Cajuns kept the pressure up, and Jacob Cabot hit a 56-yard run. He played a great game. Um, then the fumble recovery for a touchdown. That's really what put South Alabama out of this game. And it was 33-14. Then they scored real late, 33-20. I was getting really upset with South Alabama because I was in the middle of making a graphic to put for our final score for the Fish Bowls scoreboard. I was trying to make one real quick, and they scored that touchdown. I'm like, dang it, I got to get rid of the 14 now, put a 20. So yeah, South Alabama, made me do more work than I wanted to right there, but it's fun. It's all in good. As long as the Cajuns win, I'll do it 10 times over. But looking at the standings, okay, so this is important. The Cajuns are currently in second place in the Sun Belt West. They're a game behind Troy, which they do have to play Troy later on this year. They control their destiny looking ahead here because Troy's 3-1, Arkansas State's 2-2. They have to play Arkansas State this weekend here, and comparing these two teams is something we're going to get into, but not right now here too much. The Cajuns really control their destiny if you're looking at the schedule here, because you got Arkansas State, then Southern Miss, and you go on the road at Troy, and then UOM, but they're going to be on the road at Arkansas State and Jonesboro this weekend. So 2 o'clock kickoff for the Cajuns here, but it's going to be one of those that the Cajuns and Arkansas State, they have a very good rivalry in football. But I, it, you look at the beginning of this year, it looked like Butch Jones was going to quit his job, but they've definitely turned it around. They're 4-4, at 500 on the year, so we'll see what happens here. And what you think, Jalen? Anything else you want to add?
I think my biggest question too is can the Cajuns defense specifically keep this up? I mean, they played great against South Alabama, who had an experienced quarterback in Carter Bradley, who is not that's not his first time starting. He's not a first year starter, and they played awesome. Like, can they keep that up against another dual threat quarterback in Arkansas State? Is what I'm trying to see, and I think they can, but we have to wait and see.
Yeah. So looking at both these teams and team stats and stuff, they're kind of Arkansas State's a little bit worse against the pass and the run than the Cajuns are, comparing yards for sure. Team stats average wise, so FPI has Cajuns winning this game here at a 74.2% chance of the Cajuns picking up the victory here. Total yards, Cajuns at 415.4 yards. Arkansas State's at 373.3. The Cajuns are really balanced if you're looking at the average here. Which, if you looked at it, you'd be like, okay, they're not. The Cajuns usually a lot on the run. They're more of a run-based team. But if you look at the yards they rush per game, they're like the average for them is 214. Okay, yards passing is at 201.4. Arkansas State's at 230, and their running ability is at 143. So they get it done through the air, Arkansas State. So you have to be able to cover those receivers, and they look like it's going to be a shootout. Seems like here. If you're betting on this game, they're giving Cajuns 9 points here. Passing yards allowed, Cajuns give up 237. Arkansas State gives about 269. Rushing yards allowed, Cajuns give up 145 and 186 for Arkansas State. So every category favors the Cajuns. But there's a little bit more than just the numbers. You got to go a little bit beyond that to kind of like look and see like how the game flow is going and stuff. So comparing like individual players here, Renor, he's thrown for almost 1,500 yards this year, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Zeon Chris has got over 1,000 yards this past weekend. He's at 10 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Jacob Cabot, he leads the team in rushing, but it's more of a committee, seems like here. He's he's averaging over 5 yards a carry. He's like at 6 yards, it looks like 6 or 7 yards. He's got a very high yard per carry if you look at him because Okay, I was trying to see what this was. 87 carries for 585 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 6.7 yards per carry. So he's hard to bring down. He's definitely getting you some good averages there, but he couldn't do it out of the offensive line of the Cajuns. If the Cajuns can control the line of scrimmage this game, which I think they will, because it just doesn't look like Arkansas State up front is gonna be able to beat the Cajun at the point of attack. But you have to be kind of worrying about this here because Arkansas State's coming off a win against ULM. They beat them 34-24. They had 2 losses to Coastal Carolina, then Troy. Troy first, then Coastal Carolina, and then you got UMass, which isn't that great of a football team. They blew them out 52-28, and Southern Miss 44-37. It seemed like the game that the Cajuns got all this kind of like together, that we knew they had a pretty good offensive line with Minnesota. I think the Georgia State one, the Cajuns kind of beat themselves on that one, so it was like okay. But with Georgia State losing to Georgia Southern last week, it's looking like Georgia Southern is going to be the winner out of the East here because James Madison can't compete in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game or a bowl game as of right now. So, despite all that, Jalen, what you think? What is something the Cajuns can do to, like keep this momentum up, to keep the pressure on the other team here? Is it a do or die situation for them? And that's how they're approaching it?
Yes, I was still approaching it as a do or die situation. I know we talked about all last week how they had to beat South Al to keep that momentum going. Would I have to do the same thing against Arkansas State this week? And I feel like Arkansas State is a little bit maybe a better team overall than South Alabama was, especially with having another dual threat quarterback who's also a freshman. But I think that it is still a do or die game for the Cajuns because they lose this one, and yeah, they could beat Southern Miss, but then you have to go on the road to face Troy, who's already leading the Sun Belt West Division. So I think that Arkansas State game is another game the Cajuns have to take seriously, and I think another way they can keep this momentum going, do what they did against South Al, where Zion Chris was the third leading rusher, where you had Jacob Kabodi, who had 23 carries for 119 yards and a touchdown. Draylen Washington at 12 carries, 52 yards. And then third was Zion Chris with his 10 carries for 30 yards. I feel like if your quarterback is leading your rushing, it's not really going to get you anywhere. Whereas earlier in the season they were doing it by committee, but I think now Jacob Kabodi is kind of like, hey, I'm the guy. Just feed me, and I can lead this team in the run game. So I think if they keep doing that with the run game, and Chris continues playing this well, where with no interceptions this game, the Cajuns can beat Arkansas State and get to that journey they're trying to get to, and that's the Sun Belt Championship game.
Look, it's just crazy, like how like this team's definitely maturing. They're definitely getting better, and they're getting hot at the right time. It seems like if they could put together, like I was looking at this the other day, and I wasn't really worried about the Arkansas State game. And you're probably wondering, well, why you ain't worried about it too much here? Because and everybody's probably, oh yeah, he's worried about Troy. No, I'm not worried about Troy. I think the Cajuns will play well against Troy. They almost beat Troy last year. They should have actually, to be honest with everybody, they should have beat Troy last year. They let the game get away from them in the second half, and that's kind of been like the theme, right? With under Desimo, they kind of let these games get away from them sometimes, or let them back in, or have to do a second half comeback to win against them. But South Alabama, the game I think could be a big jumping point for this Cajun football team because if you look at it here, they played 4 quarters of sound football, and we haven't seen that in a while since like Napier. Like they've played complete games under Napier. We haven't seen it under Desmo yet. This is the first time we've actually seen that. So Arkansas State and Southern Miss and Troy then UOM. The game that I'm most worried about is Southern Miss in that 4 game stretch. And you're probably wondering, well, why are you worried about a 1-17? That is a perfect recipe for a trap game. Completely. You can look at Southern Miss and they have a 1-7 record and completely dismiss them because you think you're going to be able to run them over And I've seen it happen a lot of time and time again. Maybe that happened against the South Alabama against, they're playing Troy this weekend. Maybe they were looking ahead of Troy and the Cajuns came in there and, humbled them really quick with that. So that Southern Miss game, I think all games are important. I think all four of them are completely important for the Cajuns winning the Sun Belt title and Sun Belt West. But they have to take this one game at a time. They literally need to emphasize that one game at a time because if they start looking ahead to the Troy game, they're going to lose either Arkansas State or US or Southern Miss because that is something that's going to happen because you have to play it one game at a time and you can't look ahead to you got to be focused on the guys that you need to be focused on here. Arkansas State's the opponent this weekend. Then you got a quick turnaround against Southern Miss. Hey, you got to come out firing and ready to go whenever your time comes up to it. What if out of that game stretch, Jalen? Which game are you most concerned about?
What else? I feel like we're kind of on the same boat. Whereas I think they're going to beat Arkansas State, but I think Southern Miss is going to be a challenge because, like you said, it's that midweek game. But I think really the biggest game has to be the Troy game. I know I'm looking too far ahead of time, but it's like, yeah, Southern Miss only has what, one win on the year. They're 0-5 in the Sun Belt. So yeah, I think on a short week it could be a trap game. But I think the Cajuns will be. I expect them to be ready for that game. And honestly, I think the game will be close and they'll pull it out in the end just because it's a trap game in the middle of the week. They're just coming off playing early, a couple days early. I mean, it can happen to any team. But I think that Troy game is really the biggest game. Like you said, last year they should have beat Troy, and Troy ended up winning the Sun Belt. And not only that, they lead the West Division this year. All the Cajuns have to do is beat Troy, and they'll be number one in the West because they should win against Southern Miss. They should win against ULM, the two bottom teams in the Sun Belt West, and they could get this great road win against Arkansas State coming up. Their matchup with Troy is the biggest game of the year for the Cajuns once they get to that point. And I just think they honestly could pull it off. But we just have to wait and see what happens. But Troy is a great team. So
Yeah, like the Cajuns could very well win the rest of the games. It's very possible and it's very doable. Um, Back to what I was saying earlier in like the season and stuff, I felt Desmo should have an 8-4 record with his schedule. I mean, it was setting up that way, and he's got to win three of his last four to even reach that preseason mark there. Because I've come out and said it multiple times before on this podcast here that if he doesn't reach 8-4, then I'm very worried about the direction of our program with this schedule here because it looked like, hey, like the Cajuns should have beat Georgia State, I think, toward the end. I think some people want to play for overtime. I don't blame the play calling because they slept walk through the first half against Georgia State. That loss probably should have never happened, honestly. Because I mean, if the Cajuns play at their cap, they're like ceiling. They're ceiling. They run up and they're hitting it. Okay, hitting that ceiling. If they play to their max of their potential, they will win the Sun Belt easily. Like it wouldn't even be a competition. I think they're probably the most talented team in the Sun Belt this year, aside from James Madison. Like we're talking about like teams that could actually win the championship this year. James Madison is not in that conversation because of NCAA rules, which it's stupid. I understand, but look, that's just the way it is. I think the Cajuns have a lot of talent on their team. I think they could very well win it here. And, I think they're finally figuring that out. Very young team, too. So, Jalen, you ready to pick some? Well, we got some other stuff here going on too. Soccer's in the Sun Belt tournament, conference tournament. How do you think soccer's going to go this week, Jalen?
well, the Cajuns soccer team, they ended up with a couple wins and a couple losses and then a win to end the regular season. But I think they can, because I know they're going against Texas State. I think they can give Texas State a run for their money. I think they should be able to come out with the win against Texas State.
They qualified, I think it's the 10th seed.
to
I'm
begin. And
trying
you
to
never know. I
remember.
mean, like we've been talking about
Yeah,
forever. Momentum is a big thing.
yeah, they did get that win over Marshall, and it's like, okay, so you're playing the 8 seed in Texas State, so hopefully they'll be able to pull it off here. They got underway. We'll give you some live stats right now. Um, hopefully, I'm hoping that they are performing here because I was gonna pick the Cajun to win this because I feel like they could have been sneaky good, but yeah, it's not looking good right now. They're down 2-0 to Texas State right now with about 32:53, so it's not good, but maybe the Cajuns can pull it off as the match progresses here. So we'll see how that goes for them there. Now, since that game's underway, we can't really tell you about what happened with that one. Let's go switch over to Raging Cajun volleyball. What you thinking, Jalen? You think the Cajuns how you see the Cajun season going from this point on?
The volleyball team is a lot better than people expected. I know the coach is she's only was it her second or maybe third year with the team. I think they're looking really good. They're on a 3-game win streak right now, and they have Southern Miss coming up on Thursday. Then they play them again doubleheader next day on Friday. So I think they can, and then South Al coming up after that.
Yeah, I mean, Southern Miss, and you got App State, and
Cajun
then
volleyball team, they're looking good. They're peaking at the right they're peaking at the right moment, and having 3 straight wins just goes to show you that these girls are really battling out there, and they're trying to get things going from this before the Sun Belt tournament starts on November 15th. So it's looking good so far.
yeah, you have to be able to just keep rolling with it here. So let's look at standings here so we can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at here. Everybody gonna pull this up and look at this here. So Cajuns are smack dab in the middle of the West Division right now in terms of record here. So they're fourth out of 7 teams here. So they're playing Southern Miss next. They should pick up the win against both those matches here, which would greatly help their chances. Then they playing App State here, which if you look at App State on the east side, they are not really doing great on in their division, but they're 4-8 in conference, whereas the Cajuns are 6-6. So I think the Cajuns could win out and very well like push their standing in the Sun Belt, where you would have these two Southern. They got two, then it's four, they could very well finish with a 10-6 record and put themselves almost to the top of the West Division, but they would probably stay where they're at, honestly, because you got Texas State at 9-3, South Alabama's at 9-3, and Troy's 11-1 in the division. Your Coastal Carolina's 12-0, James Madison's 10-2, Georgia Southern 7-5 in the East Side. So look, they could very well do it. They could very well push the envelope there, but we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a very good thing for them, and we'll just see how it goes. I got them beating Southern Miss. Who you got, Jalen?
Yeah, I have them beating Southern Miss also, and I also have them beating App State. You know, App State is middle of the pack of the East, or the Cajuns are in the middle of the pack in the West. I mean, there's so many great teams in volleyball in the Sun. I mean, look at Coastal Carolina and James Madison, the top 2 teams right there in the East, and in the West, it's just Troy, South Al, and Texas State. All these teams are having great years. The Cajuns got to just go out there and compete and give it all they have.
Yeah, so let's go talk about some Sun Belt football here. So, the biggest game of the week, in my opinion. Well, you got two big games it's looking like here, but I think the biggest one is you have South Alabama versus Troy on Thursday night here. So South Al has to be angry, okay? And I feel like they'll be fuming going into the Troy game. Who you got, Jalen, in that game?
I'm going to go with Troy. They're the home team, and like you said, though, South Al came off a loss against the Cajuns, where they were kind of embarrassed at home. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think Troy is going to pull it out and keep their win streak going.
I'm gonna disagree with you, dude. I think South Alabama's gonna beat Troy because I think like it's literally gonna set the stage up for this year because South Alabama, they like you said, you mentioned it, they got embarrassed at home. Okay, like they because all like they were supposed to beat the Cajuns by 10 points, and they came in there and that's what happened. They ended up losing. Had a very sloppy game with all the turnovers and everything. I think South Alabama goes back and kind of looks at the film and this anger, right? They lost um a chance to go to the championship game because of the loss against Troy last year. That was the game they needed to win and they couldn't do it last year. So I think South Alabama goes into Troy. I think they knock off the Trojans. I think the Trojans are riding a high right now, and I think South Alabama gets it going. I got the Jaguars beating the Trojans. All right, Louisiana versus Arkansas State. Jalen, I'm gonna go with this one here first. I'll take the first stab at it here. I think the Cajuns win Arkansas State. I think they're a team on a mission. If they could continue playing like they have been, I think they get the job done. Who you got, Jalen?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Cajuns. Also, I don't think it's gonna be a high scoring game like they did in the first half against South Alabama. I think Arkansas State is really gonna come to play, but I think it's gonna be a close one. I'm gonna give the Cajuns the win in Jonesboro.
All right, next game on the list here, James Madison, ranked number 23, taking on Georgia State here. Now, granted, this one here, I don't think James Madison finishes the season undefeated. I think they're going to lose one of these games here. I just don't trust that record too much with them here. They're playing very good, okay? They have a quarterback that has over 2,000 yards passing. He's doing a great job here, but will he get the job done against Georgia State? It's going to be a very interesting question there. Um, they go on the road to Georgia State, but I think James Madison gets it done this week. I don't, but I would not be shocked if they lost to Georgia State. Who you got, Jalen?
I'm gonna go with James Madison. Also, I think they're gonna keep their undefeated streak alive. But I think since it's at Georgia State and Georgia State beat the Cajuns, but then they came off a loss to Georgia State lost to. I can't think. Oh, lost to Georgia Southern,
Georgia
and both
Southern.
teams are right there. They're right there at the top of the East, right behind James Madison. So I think they'll come in to play at home, but I think James Madison is going to pull this one out.
Look, it's going to be a very fun one to watch for sure. Coastal Carolina versus Old Dominion. So Lion has Old Dominion at one point here. This one I've been struggling with all week to try to figure out who I'm going to pick in this one. Old Dominion came off a really close loss to James Madison, and I think Old Dominion takes it though against Coastal. Uh, Grayson McCall hasn't been himself this year. Their Coastal's kind of in somewhat of a rut. It seems like. Who you got, Jalen?
Yeah, Coastal has really like struggled this year. I thought Grayson McCall was going to come back, the experienced starter that he is, and lead Coastal, try to get back to the Sun Belt Championship. But they just really really struggled this year. Old Dominion has been great defensively throughout the year. So I'm gonna go with Old Dominion on this one.
All right, ULM versus Southern Miss here. Now this one's interesting here. Both these teams are. This is called the Toilet Bowl of the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt Toilet Bowl, I would call it. Because nobody's got a conference win yet. So, um, if I had to pick between these two, I think Southern Miss gets the job done. I think they'll pick up their first win in the Sun Belt this year over UOM. Who you got, Jalen? You got to give it to Frank Gore though. Frank Gore Jr.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Southern Miss also. I just think, oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Southern Miss is gonna take this one. I mean, Frank Gore torched App State on the ground. They lost the game, but he torched them on the ground with over 240 yards rushing. I mean, come on now, Frank Gore Jr. That's unbelievable. But I think he's gonna lead Southern Miss to their first Sun Belt win against ULM. They're gonna take it.
Georgia Southern versus Texas State. Now this is a good game. This is gonna be a very good game. But oh man, this one's kind of a tough one. You're kind of wondering who to actually pick here. Georgia Southern definitely throwing the ball a lot more than they did in years past for sure. Got a quarterback that almost has 2,500 yards passing. So give me Georgia Southern. I think they'll beat Texas State through the air here and just keep the momentum going. Who you got, Jalen?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm gonna go with Georgia Southern also. I think they got a 2-game winning streak going. The last loss they had was to James Madison. I think they're the ones who are going to come out of the Sun Belt East, and they're going to keep the momentum going and beat go to San Marcos and beat Texas State.
Marshall versus App State. So App State hasn't been the App State of old for sure. They're kind of more on the decline a little bit the last 2 years after making the Sun Belt Championship game in 2021, where they lost to the Raging Cajuns in that one. Last year wasn't kind of like what they expected too much. And then this year they're 4-4 and 2-2 in Sun Belt here. So I mean they're still in the hunt, they're still in the mix, and I think that motivates them enough to win this game over Marshall. Who you got, Jalen?
Yeah, it's two teams is at the bottom of the Sun Belt East, and like you said, App State is not the App State of the past, but I think they'll get the win against Marshall to keep in the hunt for the East because it'll be interesting if Georgia Southern loses and the rest of the teams in the East win. I mean, it'll
If
be
they
interesting.
if they lose the if they lose to Marshall, I think App State's finished. They'll be at 3 losses, and they'll be both be 2-3. They'll be 2 games back of Georgia Southern, depending on what happens in the game on Saturday. Now, what were you gonna say, Jalen?
Oh no, all I was saying was if they want to try to stay in contention in the East, App State need to go on and get the win. And I was saying like if Georgia Southern does lose, it'll make things pretty interesting in some East. The way it is in the West with the Cajuns, Texas State, and Arkansas State are all at 2, and South Alabama all at 2-2, but Troy sitting there at 3-1, trying to maintain. So it's interesting here in the Sun Belt. Everything's a lot closer this year.
Yep, definitely a lot more parity in the conference this year for sure. And we'll see what happens with all that there. So thank y'all for tuning in to the Fishbowl Radio here. If y'all want to listen to an audio of this episode, we're gonna have that on Spotify, and you can watch the full episodes on Facebook, YouTube, and we'll also drop a link on our Twitter page to go to Spotify, or maybe YouTube, depending on how I'm feeling that day. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a great and wonderful day, night, week. Jaylen, anything you want to say before we get off the air here?
UL women's basketball starts next week, and the Cajuns men's team actually is going on right now, exhibition. So stay tuned for
Yep.
basketball.
Yeah, basketball season is right around the corner here. So before I go, and since we're kind of on the breaking side of the news here, let's go. It's an exhibition. It's not really much worth talking about. The Cajuns are winning this game currently. Right now. It'll be interesting though. Right now they got it going on. And I'm just trying to see. They don't even have any live stats of the game, which is kind of funny to me. Um, but
They beat them that
yeah, they are beating them. I saw
bad.
it somewhere. It's UT Tyler. It's not much. The season kicks off November 6th against Youngstown State. It's the home opener. Which I always loved Youngstown State's mascot. I love the penguin mascot, man. That thing is like amazing. I just love like the idea of it. It's such a random mascot that you just gotta love it. It's unique. It's synonymous with Youngstown State. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you for tuning to the Fishbowl Radio here. Hope you have a great and wonderful week. We'll see y'all here next time on the Fishbowl Radio.